It wasn't the launch that rattled the galaxy. It was the void that came after. For 3 weeks, Earth transmitted nothing. No telemetry streams, no recovery updates, no celebratory announcements, just empty silence after the test ship Odyssey pierced the light speed threshold and vanished into the black. Every observatory and listening post, from the Martian cradle to the Von Spiral Array, held their collective breath. Then it reappeared. But Odyssey didn't come back from where it had departed. It re-emerged 20 light-years away, right at the edge of the neutral zone bordering the Council's most revered sector or region. Even the battle-hardened RE wouldn't approach without top-tier clearance. No one had ever crossed space like that. Not by folding space, not without shredding subspace and turning half a crew to vapor mid-jump. No species had ever attempted a jump so vast, so reckless, so seemingly impossible, yet the humans did. And, impossibly, the ship returned intact, no radiation scarring, no hull warping, not even a thermal trace matching any known models. It was as if the vessel defied the fundamental laws the galaxy had painstakingly obeyed for centuries. 3 hours. After Odyssey's return, the Interstellar Council called an emergency summit. That could mean only one thing: humanity had terrified them. In the council chamber, a colossal glass dome in orbit above the twin stars of Tavalvanus. Representatives of every major species sat packed in nervous formation. The Tranian envoy blinked his quartet of eyes in unison, tendrils coiling tighter around his data slate as he parsed the incident files. The Voltari High Speaker spat a curse in her native tongue, slamming her spindly fist on the table. Fear hummed through the chamber. They crossed through the fade. One of the Elder Carol roared. They brute-forced quantum gravity. No slipstream. Calculations, they ripped it open. They tore subspace a moon wide. A moon. If that had collapsed, the Sarnathi Chancellor began. It didn't. A low, gravelly voice interrupted from across the hall. Heads turned. The human representative, Commander Reeve, stood with hands clasped behind his back, his face scarred, unshaven, expression unreadable, eyes like deep space. Not a diplomat, not a supplicant, but a soldier, and he spoke like one. "We tested the drive," Reeve said, stepping forward. "It succeeded. We completed the jump. No casualties, no damage, no loss of control. The Odyssey did exactly what it was built for. That's irrelevant," someone spat. Reeve didn't flinch. "Humanity's finished waiting for consent," he went on. "For centuries, we were shackled by accords you all signed while Earth still bled from its wars. We clawed our way into the stars, earned every step through fire and defiance. That we've found a way forward? You'd rather lock us back in the pen?" "No," the Valtari whispered. "We want to stop genocide." Reeve's eyes flicked, just faintly. "You think that's what this is? A weapon? You bypassed defenses, ignored treaties, crossed forbidden zones. You broke the safe transit threshold and left a warp echo that crushed 4 satellites. In the Pellin sector? Not our doing," Reeve answered evenly. "Your satellites were built on outdated assumptions. Ours weren't." And there it was, the veiled threat beneath his composure. The unnerving stillness of a man who'd stood face to face with death and didn't blink. This wasn't mere scientific breakthrough. This was power. Pure, uncontrolled, undeniable power that left the rest of the galaxy afraid. Ask Chakchet. Kachin. Up anymore. It was rewriting the rules no one had dared question. Humans were building the impossible without consent, without apology, and that terrified the galaxy more than war itself. On Earth, buried deep beneath the Greenland ice, Dr. Lennox stood alone before the engine he'd spent 14 years creating. The FTL core hummed steadily now, alive in a way machines shouldn't be. He knew the Council would threaten sanctions, perhaps even war, but none of that mattered. He hadn't built this for them. He built it for the men who died believing Earth would never touch the stars. For the boy who watched his father burn in a shuttle crash because Earth's tech was too slow, too outdated to save him. He built it because humanity had been overlooked too many times. Now, it was their turn to be afraid. Commander Reeve hadn't even stepped off the council dais when private messages flooded his neural link. Warnings, threats wrapped in courtesy, frantic demands from Earth's uneasy allies. Every species with something to lose wanted answers, and none of them trusted what they'd heard. Reeve ignored them all. Instead, he opened a secure channel to Earth. "Get me Lennox," he ordered. A pause. Then a voice crackled through his implant. Calm. Flattenly, a man who didn't care for politics could sound that cold. "Already." "Listening," Lennox said. "You saw their reaction?" Reeve asked. "Heard it before you even walked in," Lennox replied. "The whole relay grid's tapped. I wanted to see if they'd panic. They did. Worse, they think it's a weapon." Silence hung between them, then Lennox gave a low, bitter laugh. "It's because it is, Reeve. Just not the way they think." Reeve's jaw tightened as he paced the docking corridor. Alien guards watched him with suspicion, thinly masked as duty. One guard reached for a scanner but froze when Reeve's glare met his. Reeve muttered through clenched teeth. "You know already," Lennox said. "You've fought more wars than those diplomats have seen star systems. You know how war starts? You know what people fear? And right now, that engine scared them more than any fleet humanity had ever built." Reeve didn't answer. He didn't have to because Lennox was right. The FTL-9 wasn't just faster. It wasn't just progress. Ask ChatGPT. FTL-9 had changed the rules. Oh, with a single jump, Earth had made centuries of interstellar borders irrelevant. Space, for most species, was still slow, hazardous, constrained by the Council's stabilized slip. Lanes routes so tightly regulated and patrolled that traveling felt more like navigating walled fortresses than exploring open skies. But the FTL-9 didn't recognize lanes, laws, or jurisdictions. It tore straight through reality, arriving wherever it pleased. And that was a problem no treaty could ever solve. Deep under Greenland's ice, Lennox hunched over the humming core. Eyes sunken, bloodshot from days without rest. His body screamed for sleep, but his mind remained sharp. Every recalibration, every variable, every microscopic reaction of the quantum coils was burned into his memory. The engine wasn't just a machine anymore. It was his life's marrow. He'd grown up in what used to be Chicago, before war refugees and forced relocation swallowed the city whole. His mother died in a ration riot. His father burned up in a shuttle accident because the safety protocols failed during re-entry. Lennox was 12. No one explained it to him. No one paid. The company issued a single-line apology and moved on. That was when he learned what power really was. The second lesson came when the Council rejected Earth's plea for priority science, funding labeling humanity reckless, perturb, too emotionally unstable as a species. That denial killed 20 research labs. It killed careers, futures, but it ignited a spark in the right people, people like Lennox. So when Earth's leaders gave up on diplomacy and turned to black-budget science, Lennox was ready. He took the failures of every propulsion system humanity had ever built and forged. Something new, something dangerous, something no one could ignore. He didn't want applause. He wanted respect. And failing that fear would do. Meanwhile, above Argeron 6, inside a cloaked Ruker Dominion research station, senior intelligence officers pored over the Odyssey's jump data. None of it made sense. "No decay trace," muttered one officer. "No neutrino scatter, no bleed-off," said another. "It's like they skipped subspace entirely," the Admiral growled. "Then explain this," an analyst snapped, projecting a video. The Odyssey didn't just reappear. It materialized like a shadow drawn into existence by light, pulsing into form with a faint ripple, untouched by transit. "That's not a jump," someone whispered. "That's rewriting location." Which meant humanity had learned to move not through space, but around it. Folding the map, burning the gaps. "We're not behind," the Admiral said, slumping into his seat. "We're obsolete." Aboard his personal long-range dropship, the Mistral commander Reeve stared into the void as they exited Council space. His mind wasn't on politics. It was on war, because war was inevitable now. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not this year, but the moment Earth refused to dismantle FTL-9, the countdown began. Reeve had seen this pattern: border conflicts, failed colonies, the fragile lie of peace maintained by balance, until someone shattered it. Humanity had just shattered it, unapologetically. The Defense Command reports said it all. Half the fleets were already running blackout drills. Civilian ships were being upgraded with stealth plating. Subsurface bunkers were being expanded under Mars and Europa. It's not because Earth wanted war, but because Earth knew it was coming. They didn't want to be ready. They had to be. Reeve closed his eyes and let the ship's hum settle into his bones. It reminded him of the old carrier ships where sleep came in stolen moments, and dreams were just the names of friends who made it back alive. He never thought he'd live long enough to see Earth stop crawling. But now they were running. Ask ChatGPT. But urgent, they've sent the order. Biological termination authorized. It's not a guess anymore. They're coming soon. Lennox's hand froze over the console. He didn't look up. Didn't have to. Confirmation wasn't a surprise. Just a grim inevitability finally spoken aloud. I assumed as much, Lennox muttered, eyes still on the readouts. It was always going to come to this. They'll hit us hard, Lennox. You, me, everyone in this facility. I know. And you're still here? Still tweaking settings like it'll make a difference when they drop kinetic rods on? Us. Lennox finally looked at Deke. His eyes were hollow, but the fire hadn't gone out. That's exactly why I'm still here, Lennox said quietly. Because the only thing worse than dying with it unfinished is dying knowing we never pushed far enough. Deke exhaled slowly, frustration giving way to resignation. He'd known Lennox long enough to hear the finality in his voice. Then what's the plan? Lennox tapped a command into the terminal, initiating a data cascade. Blueprints, core schematics, transit calculations, all of it uploading too. Secure off-world relays. We finish the next prototype, and if we don't, someone else will. Deke shook his head. You're gambling with extinction. No, Lennox said, gaze cold and certain. I'm gambling on survival. Because if they're willing to kill us for what we've built, it means we've already won the first fight. Back on Titan, Lieutenant Harris scrambled to alert Earth. Command fingers shaking over the comms interface. He'd seen Black Ops orders before, but never like this. Biological termination. Covert assault. This wasn't just a preemptive strike, it was extermination. And Harris knew one thing for certain. The war had already started. They don't have to, Lennox said flatly. They just have to fear us. Reeve stared at him for a moment, then gave a slow, grim nod. The Council wouldn't accept evidence. They wouldn't. Accept peace. But they would understand fear. Good, Reeve said. Then let's make sure they never forget who showed them how to be afraid. The operations center was a storm of controlled chaos. Screens flashed trajectories, field data, and security overlays. The Vanguard sat prepped and sealed in the launch chamber beneath Europa's ice, its FTL core humming like the low growl of some great beast. Every tech, every officer moved with purpose. But the tension was unbearable, because now they knew the clock was ticking on more than the jump. The Varna. Strike cruisers would hit the facility soon. Too soon, launch status. Reeve barked. 3 minutes to readiness. A tech called back. Deke checked the defense grid readings. No ships in range yet, but we won't stay invisible for long. They're coming, Reeve paced, his mind calculating odds, exits, contingencies. But there was no retreat. They had one move left, jump the Vanguard. Or die trying. Lennox watched the countdown, his fingers tightening around the data pad holding the new core's metrics. This was no longer just an experiment. This was survival, the kind of survival that demanded a message written in the sky. We're here. We can go anywhere. We cannot be stopped. 1 minute, the tech announced. Reeve stood still, eyes locked on the clock. If this worked, the game changed forever. If it didn't, there wouldn't be a second chance. Then the proximity alarm screamed. Varna ship, 6 of them, dropping from stealth at the edge of Europa's shadow. They're too early, Deke snapped. They're in weapons range, another officer cried. Reeve's jaw clenched. Launch the Vanguard. Now, the technician's hands flew across the console. The final sequence armed, the launch thrusters flared. And deep beneath the ice, the Vanguard's engines ignited. Reeve watched the screen as the jump core charged. Come on, he muttered. Come on, ... The Varna cruisers opened fire-kinetic rods, high-energy beams, lances of light and mass, screaming toward the ice, and then the Vanguard vanished. A pulse of distortion, a soft ripple, and the ship was gun-leaving. Nothing but a fading echo of warped space. No impact, no debris, no kill. In the ops center, the clock hit 0. Silence fell. Reeve exhaled sharply, a thin smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. They missed. Lennox's voice was steady. They'll never catch us again. Outside, the Varna cruisers swept the ice with sensors, but they found nothing. No trace, no wreckage. Only emptiness. The message was sent louder than any broadcast. Earth had jumped. Now nothing was out of reach. ChatGPT said, "Council convened again, this time under emergency war protocols." Every seat was filled, every representative tense with the same question pressing in. What else is Earth hiding? Footage of the Vanguard's maneuver had spread through intelligence channels like wildfire. The jump, the appearance behind the cruisers, the sudden emergence of 2 more ships, none of it matched any known propulsion models. "They have fleet capability," the Sarnathi Chancellor spat. "Not prototypes, not tests. A fleet. And you saw how they used it," the Voltari high speaker hissed. "They didn't fire. They didn't need to. They're showing us control. The power to appear anywhere, surround us, and make us look powerless in our own space." "No." "Escalate," warned a Carol elder. "If they can move fleets, they can position strikes anywhere, even on our homeworlds." The Varnai ambassador, humiliated but composed, stood slowly. "We are prepared to lead a punitive response," she said. "We have cruisers en route already, and what if they don't find their targets?" interrupted the Tranian diplomat. "What if Earth jumps its assets off the board before you fire a shot? You'll start a war, Varnay, but you won't end it." Silence fell. Every species in the chamber knew the same truth. Earth could move faster than any of them, faster than their fleets, their intel, their responses. No one knew where Earth's next piece was hidden. Meanwhile, under the South Pacific, in the most secret facility ever built, the next phase of the FTL program neared completion. It wasn't just a ship. It wasn't just a core. It was a platform designed to fold not just itself, but space around it. Gravitational, well built to pull. To bring enemy ships into firing range whether they wanted to be there or not.
Lennox
Had already seen the simulations. He didn't need approval, didn't need consensus. The future wasn't about diplomacy anymore. Lennox stood watching the machinery in motion. The core's containment ring slowly spinning with a low harmonic pulse that vibrated through the entire chamber. Round him, engineers worked in silence. Every one of them aware of the transmission that had just come through. Deke approached from the side, reading the tightness in Lennox's posture. "It's done," Deke said. "We're out." Lennox didn't look away from the core. "We were never in D. They just made it official." "You think they'll make the first move?" "They already tried," Lennox muttered. "They'll try again. Next time they'll send more than spies." Deke studied the core. "Is it ready? Soon?" Lennox's eyes stayed fixed, cold, and determined. Godhook isn't just a jump drive. Once it's fully operational, it'll do more than pull ships through space. It'll move worlds if we want it to. "That sounds like the kind of thing that gets a species wiped off the map," Deke muttered. Lennox smiled faintly. No humor. "In it, only if we lose." Above them, the South Pacific churned like any other ocean. But far below, buried beneath kilometers of rock and water, humanity was forging something that would either secure their place among the stars or burn. The galaxy trying, and back on the council station orbiting Kesh's dying star. The delegates sat in tense, uncertain silence, because they all understood what had just happened. They hadn't exiled Earth. Kambui, buried in the asteroid belt near E. Pluto, the same one that had just received the Godhook schematics. It looked like just another ancient leftovers from pre-FTL communication arrays. But Earth's Black Fleet knew better. This one didn't transmit for commerce or science. It was the Council's eyes inside Seoul, at 04-7 UTC. 3 stealth frigates exited slipspace within microseconds of each other, surrounding the node without warning. No challenges, no signals. They didn't wait. All three fired specialized warheads kinetic. Rods wrapped in micro-EMP shrouds designed to obliterate electronics before the metal even struck. The node didn't have defenses. It was never supposed to need them. It was gone in under 5 seconds. No transmission, no trace. Back on Earth, deep beneath the Indian Ocean, Fleet Command confirmed the hit. No survivors, no data recovery. The Black Ops Admiral in charge simply nodded. Phase 1 complete. On Phobos, Reeve watched the silent confirmation come through his HUD. No celebration, no satisfaction, just inevitability. Now they know we're watching back, he muttered. Lennox still at the shipyards on Europa. Received the same confirmation? Good, he whispered to himself. Then he turned to his engineers. Double the pace. The next version of Godhook won't just pull ships out of jump. I want it to trap them. If they come, they stay. Somewhere in the dark between stars. The Council's shadow fleets would soon realize their spy had gone quiet. It for nearly 9 hours, when a Qatari patrol near Groland's Reach reported a missing depot. Not destroyed, missing. The entire site, a reinforced moon facility the size of a small city, was gone without debris, wreckage, or heat trace. The Council's emergency survey drones arrived. They found only a crater in the moon's surface, smooth and glassed, like reality itself had been cauterized. No alarms had triggered, no satellites had pinged. The report that hit the Council chamber was delivered with shaking hands. There was an FTL spike signature, but not inbound or outbound. It originated inside the depot's subspace field. Then, nothing. The Valtteri delegate stood abruptly, her bony fingers clutching the railing. They've weaponized fold space. They can strike anywhere. The Morai speaker leaned forward, his voice brittle. And yet, they haven't struck our capitals or our fleets. Why? Silence followed until the Trainian envoy answered quietly. Because they're showing us that we're never safe. Not in space, not in jump, not in our own gravity wells. Reeve stood back on Earth's war room floor, reading the incoming after-action reports. He said nothing. Lennox sat beside the table, exhausted but satisfied. Deke stared at the display. You think they'll retaliate this time, Reeves? The voice was cold, even. They're not going to retaliate, D. They're going to panic. When they do, the real war starts. And above them, in orbit, Earth's black fleet quietly repositioned, waiting for the Council's next mistake. Ask ChatGPT, across the galaxy. Stations, ships, and planets watched that broadcast in breathless silence. The Council chamber, still. Convened in crisis, stood still as the transmission ended. The Valtteri delegate slammed her fist onto the table. They're daring us. No, whispered the Morai speaker, his elongated features shadowed with dread. They're warning us, and they intend to make good on it. But it was already too late for caution. The Eclipse Armada had passed the point of no return, warp gates active. Fleets massing, Black Ops wings armed with ancient weapons revived. From sealed vaults. Back on Earth in the buried command center beneath the Andes, Reeve watched the Armada's telemetry flood in. How long, he asked. 3 days, Deke replied. Then they're here. Lennox stood nearby, hunched over a live rendering of the Godhook. His voice was quiet but steady. 3 days to finish calibrations. Then we pull the trigger. Reeves' gaze never left the tactical map, his voice low and certain. Then, we make the next 3 days count, 'cause when they get here, the galaxy learns what human defiance really looks like. No more warnings, no more tests. Earth was done waiting. Ask ChatGPT on the bridge. Alarm screamed. The Sarnathi captain barked orders demanding a status report, but the ship's AI stammered back with conflicting data. We're being ... pulled, it managed. There's nothing to lock against gravity fields, and fold space are impossible. But it wasn't gravity. It was the Godhook's reach, sinking talons of engineered physics into the ship's jump. Path, then space twisted. The Fang's protective harmonics collapsed, its decoy cores shredded mid-cycle, on Earth. Deep in the Pacific chamber, the Godhook reached critical synchronization. Lennox's voice rang out. Primary lock engaged. Pulling target. Reef stood, watching the data stream, as a single icon on the tactical map flickered violently. "Do it," he ordered, the core discharged. For a moment, nothing. Then space around the Fang fractured. The ship was yanked out of fold space mid-transit, reappearing not in open space, but inside the core of a dead gas giant in the Vetris system. Sensors on the remaining Eclipse ships barely registered the catastrophic reversion. 1 second, the Fang was there the next. Its mass was swallowed whole. Crushed by pressures, no ship could survive. On Earth, silence reigned. Then the God Hook's AI confirmed. Target erased. No debris. Lennox exhaled, exhausted but triumphant. "That's one," he said. Message sent. Reeve nodded grimly. Let's see if the rest of them can still fly, knowing space itself can turn against them. Far out in the black, the Eclipse Armada paused, and for the first time in its 10,000-year legacy, it hesitated. "We know how this game ends. So if you keep pushing, understand this. We won't fight you in space. We'll erase you from it." His eyes burned cold as he finished. "This is your only mercy. Back off." The transmission ended. On the Eclipse Armada's bridge, no one spoke. The commanders of the greatest fleet ever assembled stared at the quiet void ahead of them. At the spot where Earth waited small, defiant, and suddenly dangerous beyond calculation. Then the ruthless Origins captain made the first call. "Order the fleet to pull back to outer periphery. I want a full strategic reassessment before we move again." One by one, the warships began to turn. No formal retreat. No surrender. But a recognition they could lose. On Earth, in the Terran war room, Deke watched the sensors light up. "Pulling back," he whispered. Reeve didn't relax. His voice was quiet, hard. "Not enough. They'll come again. Bigger. Smarter." Lennox nodded, eyes still on the God Hook's cooldown timer. "Then we'll be ready. And next time, we won't just warn them." Silence fell again, but it wasn't defeat. It was preparation, because Earth wasn't done not yet. "Ask ChatGPT," ChatGPT said. He read it twice, then a third time. The blood drained from his face, but his eyes sharpened. "What is it?" Deke asked, noticing the shift in his posture. Reeve turned the datapad so Deke and Lennox could see. "Hollow Bastion. Human probes confirmed. Council operatives en route. Priority red." Lennox's breath caught. "They're not after us anymore," he muttered. "They're after that." Deke frowned. "What the hell is Hollow Bastion?" Reeve shook his head. "I don't know yet. But whatever it is, they think we found it first. And that means..." Lennox finished the thought for him. "It means it's worse than we imagined. God Hook FTL weapons. They think that's scraps compared to what's buried there." Reeve stood tall, voice low but resolved. "And we find it before they do." He keyed the comms. "Activate Blackbird protocol. No delays. We're going after the Bastion." Deke raised an eyebrow. "We're running blind. What if it's a trap?" Reeve didn't hesitate. "Then we bring enough firepower to make sure the trap springs on them." Above Earth, the stealth fleet prepared to jump again. The next war wouldn't just be fought with fleets or weapons. It would be fought for the forgotten relics of an empire older than memory. And Earth was done playing catch, dash up the Hollow Bastion. It wasn't just there, it was active. The void pocket pulsed faintly in sensor echoes, distortion that looked like space breathing. The Bastion itself was vast, larger than the moon made. Of decayed alloys and exotic materials the scanners couldn't even classify. Its surface was studded with collapsed towers, exposed veins of machinery, and massive scars like something had tried to claw its way in or out. Deke stood on the Arabase's command deck, staring at the projections. "Tell me that's just residual power." His sensor officer shook her head. "No, sir. That's recent. Something cycling deep inside. If I had to guess." Deke clenched his jaw. Deke clenched his jaw, interval. The comms officer stiffened. "We caught a phase shadow on the outer rim. She's here. She's got a ship parked just outside the distortion boundary. Then she's watching us," Deke muttered. But that wasn't the worst of it. In the next scan sweep, another reading. Emerged this one, from inside the Bastion itself. A signal. Not just energy. A response. A low hum modulating in ways that resembled primitive human speech, but warped and distorted. The Kamsa eye struggled to isolate it, but when it finally did, a broken phrase repeated in fractured, ancient Terran I. Remember, ... you. The crew went dead silent. Deke's skin went cold. That's not possible. This thing is older than, and then it spoke again, louder, clearer. You took the key. You broke the seal. Lennox's warning flashed in Deke's mind. We didn't. Build Godhook. We copied it, and now the source was awake. Deke turned to his exo arm. Everything, prepped for deep scan, burst back to Earth. If this thing wakes up fully... He didn't finish the thought because, in the void just beyond the Bastion, a second shadow emerged, Terval's flagship, running dark but closing fast. Deke's eyes narrowed. Looks like we're not leaving quietly after all. In the dark, the Bastion pulsed again faster this time. Of what would happen if we fully integrate the Bastion's data into Godhook? Reeve took the chip, weighed it in his hand. What does it do? Lennox exhaled slowly. It wouldn't just pull ships from fold space. It would let us trap them. Hold them between states. Alive, aware, but frozen in transit, like flies in amber. Reeve stared at him, the weight of that idea settling in. A stasis weapon. More than that. Lennox admitted. It's containment. If we ever face something we can't kill, we lock it where it can't escape. Ever. Reeve didn't. Answer it first? Just turned back to the viewport. Earth still turning below. Finally, he said, file it. We don't build it yet. But if the day comes when it's not fleets but something else coming through the dark, we'll need it. Lennox nodded. Understood. They stood together in the quiet, the stars stretching beyond, bruised Earth, a shaken galaxy, and in the shadow of everything, the slow pulse of something ancient. Waiting still in the dark, humanity wasn't just a power now. This is an excellent and complete ending for the story. It closes Earth's rise to power while leaving the door open for a larger, darker threat. The tone, pacing, and final hook are strong.